Hello, Raf. I'm Sriram.
Nice to meet you, Sharon. Welcome.
During the 1918 pandemic, what was rolled on these machines? What were the heroes? What was the hardest job an ambulance had to do in Victoria's history?
Well, I think actually during that time is actually to have a larger amount of ambulances, because there was only something like about 12 or 13 in that particular time. But in a pandemic, as you know, there's lots and lots of sick people. So it's very little ambulance to share around. So we would have to try and attend the most critically ill patient to get to them. And also in that particular time, trying to call for an ambulance, as I showed you downstairs, telephones weren't exactly available. They had to go and usually get someone to come by either riding their horse or riding their bike and to get an ambulance to them. So yeah, it's getting an ambulance to them is always about communication. As you can see, it's grown over the years from the basic old magnetophone to, little portable radios we've got today.
Yeah. In the early 1900s, were people actually afraid of cars? How did the ambulance service convince people that there was a motorized machine safer than a horse?
Have you ridden a horse?
Not really.
No, you'll find they're a lot bumpier than even an ambulance is. I think by convincing them that we can get to them faster and get them back to a hospital faster and probably a more comfortable way, and also it's a bit hard to have someone to look after you on a horse at the same time when you're getting to the horse too, isn't it? Yeah.
Like when you're when you're on the saddle, you have to literally rope yourself to the other ambulance, to the patient, and another has to sit on the back.
That's right. Or if you're on a coach, when the backboard, or you'd be bouncing around every bit. So that makes it a bit harder as well. So at least in there you can, and if it's pouring rain too, you've got to. That's another thing. It's a lot of comfort, and the whole key part is trying to make the patient as comfortable as possible till you get them to hospital. Okay.
Looking at the 1920s engine versus the 1980s engine, what is the biggest invention that changed? How fast is an ambulance could get to the hospital?
I think it'd be the motor. That's the key part. The little 1912 one, I think, little 4-cylinder, is only a few horsepower, where today your cars have got
electric and engine power.
Yeah, engine power, 327 horsepower, versus a few horsepower. But it's also the size and comfort. Again, what I keep saying back is that if you think of a person who's got a bad back injury, bouncing on the road, it's all about comfort of the patient and making them safe and comfortable. So you want to get them to the hospital alive. You don't want to, them to pass away on the way there. So that's a key part. So speed is not as important as mostly the comfort. But, whereas if you fly in a helicopter, you're there in a few, probably half to 45 minutes. So the helicopter ones I showed you downstairs, from where the different bases are, which in Victoria we've got Melbourne. There's one based in Melbourne. There's one down at Warrnambool, one in Traralgon, and one in Bendigo. So 45 minutes flight time from there will take you to any location in Victoria. So whereas you try and drive there, particularly in the mountain area, you're hours there. So 45 minutes you'd have someone in the hospital versus windy roads when we didn't have helicopters. Big difference. Okay?
Modern ambulances like the mobile hospitals with computers in the 1950s, how did they power the radios and lights without draining the battery?
It was a big difficult because they were very thirsty. In fact, one of the early radios down there, the valve ones I spoke about, when you transmitted to talk to the control room, the headlights would dim. You'd take so much power out of the car. So they had generators on board, only enough to make the car operate, because when they built the car, they built the car to operate all its normal car equipment, headlights and wipers. But in we come and put in special medical gear and radio gear, etc. And that makes a lot more load on it. In fact, it's still a problem today, both in ambulances and police cars. People design the battery for the car, but it's not designed to take on more and extra. In fact, 2 or 3 of the cars, we've got a second battery and a second generator on board. So when they're driving along, we have our own independent medical gear battery and, of course, the car battery. Yeah. So we don't want to stop the car, do we, with our medical gear, because then we can't get the patient to the hospital, so they pass away. And we don't want to do the opposite, where we can't run a medical gear. So, yeah, we've been doing that for a while now to run 2 medical. But back in 1950s, as you asked, well, it was potluck, and when we didn't have a lot of medical gear in and around that area, it's only more into the 60s, 1960s and 70s, we actually added more stuff, like we showed you in the big mica truck.
Yep.
Okay.
Which one of these 30 vehicles is the toughest? Is there one that survived a crash or a bushfire and is still here today?
Yeah, we've got one that we've got our rollover cage. We can show you down the back there. We unfortunately in the 90s it rolled over in, I think, Swanson Street, and it's fiberglass, so it smashed apart. So we actually had to strengthen it. So it's got a roll cage on it. So that's here still today down there. But we've had, as you've seen when I was talking to you about the carb, how strong the steel was.
Yeah.
You would not want to be hit by it because the metal was so strong. Pedestrian-wise, then fortunately they'd probably die from the impact. Whereas today, cars are made of plastic and light aluminium. So when you have a crash or something, the car's supposed to crash and crumble. You aren't supposed to crash and crumble. So you get your seatbelt, you've got your airbags, and you've got all that good stuff to look after you. In fact, a lot of people will jump
out. But back then, there's not that much.
No, you took a lot of it. And a lot of people had, have you heard of your spleen in here? A lot of these were injuries because when you crashed, if you're the driver, the steering wheel would injure you there. A lot of people died from spleen injuries. Whereas now the seatbelts are there, so that's made an improvement. And then on top of the seatbelts, there was a collision. So you hit the steering wheel would crash down. And, of course, airbags today have been a fantastic improvement in people's, surviving large crashes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Raf, you spend so much time looking after these machines. What was the very first vehicle that made you fall in love with history?
The vehicles, I suppose, is one, but also a lot of the radio gear that's in these cars. I'm a qualified radio technician, so I used to do a lot of repairs and building on this stuff, and I came in here to look after those mainly. So that was basically made me fall in love with the old gear in the radios and also the vehicles as well. So the whole thing about a museum, as I said, every one of the people here are the volunteers. So it's so important that they are the most important thing in this museum. Because if you think about it, this is just a brick building and there are a bunch of cars out the back. If we had no volunteers or people to look after them, then it wouldn't really exist. Yeah. So it's all those people who want to make an effort and have the same passion that I have, and these guys, especially, who have special interest in like all the history of the books. Yeah. Some have in the cars, and I have in the radio gears. So yeah, that's what makes a museum, in particular this one, so important and so much. And it's good because it's good fun. There are people who've got the same interest.
Oh, wow. As a curator, do you have to be like a detective? What is the most difficult missing piece you have to have a hunt down is for restoration?
Yeah, I suppose in one way. Remember I showed you the 1912 Talbot, the one that was in the movie Gallipoli?
Yeah.
The radiator was smashed up in that. So we had to try and get that rebuilt, but nobody knew anything how to fix them. And I looked across all over through the world, around and through New Zealand, and we were about ready to give up and say, well, it can't run anymore. till we found out a guy 2 streets up. He did repairs on radiators here in Bayswater, which was fabulous because we got it down and he hand built it all. And that was probably the most difficult one we've had that we thought we'd have to give up on we don't like to do that, to get a vehicle. So every one of these are registered and can go on the road. So it was a bit sad if we had to do that. And so we were very, very happy with that one.
Okay. Are you the guardian of these 30 ambulances? How does it feel to know that without you, this history might be lost forever?
Well, I'm only the curator. As I just said to you, I'm not important in this part. It's the other people who work here are the most important, and they are the ones that this place would not exist without them being part of it. And I guess I'm pretty privileged to have such a great bunch of people to help me. You know, it's like a group of people. You know, you just love doing what you're doing, and they have the same passion too. So it makes the place run pretty well.
Yeah. If me or any kid watching this wants to become a curator or engineer like you, what is the most important skill we should learn today?
Probably it's a bit hard, but it's called listening. It's virtually listening and then taking on board what people want to say and talk to you about, because history is made up of people telling you stories of what happened a long time ago and their experiences. And you need to listen and absorb that through and say, yeah, look, that's really good. We need to make sure that, because as people like with your grandparents, they have had stories and they will pass you down the stories and you might have remembered some. And exactly what you're doing now, you're recording it. We didn't have this method a long while ago.
Yeah.
So you can at least show everybody what's going on. We didn't. We had to talk to you about it. And you'd sit from the elders and elders would tell you and it'd hand down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's probably the most important thing is to listen and pay attention to what they tell you, because it's their story.
Well, how old is this ambulance museum?
This museum started in 2005 over in Thomastown by a chap by the name of Charles Martin, and he was an ambulance officer in the communications. So he started it all from about 2 or 3 vehicles, and we moved here to 2015 into Bayswater, and now we have 32 vehicles ranging from motorbikes to snowmobiles.
To the current ambulance.
To the current ambulance, yeah, and we've got from 1897. Remember that wooden one that I showed you?
Oh yeah.
Right through to today. The latest one is probably the Ford Territory we've got down there. But yeah, so Charlie Martin started, and this is actually called the Chaz Martin Ambulance Victoria Museum, as they, in his honour, they named it after him, which is really nice. Because he and his wife used to come here nearly every day.
Well, what was your experiences when you first joined in the museum?
Probably as I came here to look after to seeing all of the old gear that I used to work on was just, and I still had parts for it, because when I was an apprentice radio technician, I used to service them, and to see them back here and in situ where they would be now, like they're still sitting in the cars, and to get them going was just so rewarding, because I can bring something to the knowledge. And when you come into a museum, that's really you're going to come in here and volunteer. You have to come in with something that you're going to offer and that you could help with, and that's just inspiring to say, hey, I did that, I knew about this, and we can help this. And people, and it just builds it up. It's like building a foundation. People come in with information and it becomes bigger and stronger.
Yeah, and just more sturdier.
And sturdy, yeah. The weak foundation, it falls over, doesn't it? Nice strong foundation, it stays forever. And this is what we hope this place does.
Well, how were you able to fix the radios like a radio technician back then?
We had all test equipment. We had proper equipment to do it all. Same as a mechanic, he has tools and spanners. We have electronic equipment like if you're a paramedic, you've got a defib monitor where you can see the heart. I've got equipment which you can actually see inside the radio and adjust it all. So yeah, it's what I did in ambulance and what I do here today. I'd love to get back into doing it, but being a curator has taken so much more work away.
Yeah.
So we'll see what turns out.
Well, how did you get the passion to actually be a curator and get this?
It wasn't a passion. It was really that no one else really wanted to do the job because Charlie did it so well. It takes a lot of effort, and I sort of was the assistant curator there to help him migrate across because Charlie was he was getting on a bit, and so we thought we'd better have someone to help. And yeah, unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago. So I just continued on to it at the moment. So in this job, we actually re-elect everybody every 2 years. So this year's coming up for election. So someone else might be the curator then who has that ability. So doesn't mean I have to finish here. I can get out and do the stuff I really, really love.
Yeah.
Which would be great.
Like fixing the radios.
Yeah, it's like fixing the radios. Absolutely, yeah.
Back then, there were like less jobs, but now more ambulance jobs.
Well, yeah, they're pretty limited. As far as the ambulance jobs, it's really paramedics are the key people who they need to do. And you have to do a lot of university studies to do that, and then time to get on. Whereas mine is a trade. You have to go to trade school to do that, which is a good thing to do because we could always do a lot more tradespeople and builders, plumbers, electricians, and all those type of jobs. So not everyone has to be a brain surgeon. You can be a plumber and do just as well in life. All right.
Thank you, Raph, for giving your time and talking to me.
That's all right. I hope it's been rewarding.